On the outskirts of a small town in Pennsylvania, there was an old music shop that had been closed for decades. Dust-covered windows and a rusted sign that once read Sinclair's Music Haven barely hinted at the vibrant life that once filled its walls. No one had entered the shop in years, except for an old man who visited every evening at sunset. That man was Henry Sinclair. Henry, now in his late 70s, had once been a celebrated violinist. His music had graced grand concert halls and brought audiences to their feet. But after losing his wife, Eleanor, 40 years ago, he had abandoned his violin and locked away the shop, shutting out the world that once adored his talent. The music inside him had died with Eleanor, and so had a piece of his soul. Every day, Henry walked to the shop, sat on the front steps, and stared at the closed doors as if waiting for something or someone. The townspeople knew him as the quiet old man and left him alone, respecting his solitude. But fate had other plans. One crisp autumn afternoon, as Henry sat in his usual spot, a young woman approached. Her long brown hair was tucked into a woolen hat, and she carried an old violin case, battered and worn. She hesitated before speaking. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Sinclair?" she asked softly. Henry looked up, his piercing blue eyes narrowing. "Who's asking?" "My name is Claire Bennett," she said, shifting nervously. "I found this violin in my grandmother's attic, and it had your name inside. I think it belonged to you." She carefully unlatched the case, revealing a violin, Henry's violin, the one he had played the night Eleanor died. His breath caught, his hands trembled as he reached out, tracing the wood with his fingers. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "My grandmother was Eleanor's best friend," Claire explained. "Before she passed, she told me a story about a man who played the violin for the woman he loved. I didn't understand it then, but when I found this, I knew I had to find you." Henry swallowed hard. He had never known Eleanor had kept his violin. The memories came rushing back, the last song he had played for her, the way she had smiled, the way she had whispered, "Don't ever stop playing," before closing her eyes for the last time. And yet, he had stopped. Claire was a violinist herself, a struggling one. She had lost confidence in her music after a failed audition for a prestigious orchestra. Seeing Henry's pain, she made an offer. "Will you teach me?" she asked. "I think this violin was meant to bring your music back, and maybe mine too." Henry hesitated. He hadn't played in 4 decades. His hands were stiff, and his heart was weary, but something about Claire's determination stirred something inside him. For the first time in years, Henry unlocked the door to his old shop. The scent of aged wood and sheet music filled the air, bringing back ghosts of the past. And then, he picked up the violin. The strings were old, but the instrument still held its magic. Henry placed it under his chin and drew the bow across the strings. A shaky, sorrowful note echoed through the empty room. Then another, and another. Claire watched in awe as the music slowly returned to the man who had abandoned it for so long. From that day on, Henry taught Claire everything he knew. They played together every afternoon, their music filling the empty shop, bringing warmth back into Henry's life. As Claire learned, so did Henry have learned that grief never truly leaves, but neither does love. One evening, after weeks of lessons, Claire arrived with exciting news. "The town is holding a winter festival," she said. "They asked me to perform, and I want you to play with me." Henry recoiled. "No, I can't. I haven't played in front of people in years." "You told me once that music isn't about perfection," Claire said gently. "It's about telling a story, and you have a story that deserves to be heard." The night of the festival, the town square was glowing with holiday lights. Families gathered around the stage, sipping warm cider and waiting for the music to begin. Claire stepped onto the stage, her violin in hand. And then, to everyone's surprise, Henry followed. Gasps echoed through the crowd as they recognized the once legendary violinist. Henry took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and placed the violin under his chin. Claire followed. The first note rang through the air soft, sorrowful, yet filled with warmth. As they played, something miraculous happened. The years melted away, and Henry felt Eleanor's presence as if she were standing beside him, smiling. When the last note faded, the audience erupted into applause, some wiping away tears. Henry felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace. The music shop reopened. Henry and Claire continued playing together, their bond growing like that of a father and daughter. Claire went on to join the orchestra she had once feared, carrying Henry's music forward. And every evening, Henry played a melody just for Eleanor, knowing now that some love songs never truly end.